First of all, I would like to welcome the alumni which has joined us and taken out their time for us. We have Amit sir and Shivam sir who have carved a career for them in VLSI and embedded technology respectively. So they shall be introducing themselves, they shall be sharing their experiences, and I would request Amit sir to please begin with his PPT.
Okay. Hi guys, good afternoon. My name is Amit Upadhyay and I am 2017 pass out from ECE branch. Okay. Uh, so naturally, I would have come in 2013 if there was no year back for me. Hopefully, there was not. And okay, so first of all, I'm not someone very old alumni where you have to be very hesitant and reluctant in speaking to me. You can just say any what way you want to me. I don't even prefer saying sir and all that. So okay, that's fine. And secondly, don't be hesitant. Don't about asking questions or whatever you have in mind. Okay, don't be like you have to, like you're speaking to something else and you don't have to be hesitant enough. So my college journey was same like yours. The same problem, the overall summary, whatever you have been telling, same. I got and even I wanted to do things, but there was no help. Okay, so there won't be any help right now. I'm working for a company called Qualcomm, if you all know, and that basically develops smartphone SoCs and processors, or Snapdragon, the famous ones, and also other. They work in different areas of communication as well. So I think we can start with the slide. Can anyone present, please?
Abhilasha? Abhilasha, could you please present?
Yes, ma'am. Give me a minute.
Yeah.
And also, if you're not able to follow me up, or if you have any problem and following whatever I'm saying, just interrupt me and let me know. Okay, you can get it in a present mode. Actually, it won't be visible for everyone. Yeah. So the topic for today is basically in a very short. We'll cover VLSI skills and career opportunities. So can you come to the second slide? Okay. So VLSI industry is basically what is VLSI? I mean, what the audience we have in this session right now? Which from which year to which year? What our audience are we covering and which branches? Hello.
Uh, Sir, it's majorly second year. We have some people from third year as well. And the branches are mainly electrical, ECE, and EI.
So I think EI and electrical also, and even I think first year course was the basic electronics was there. So you might have heard of a word called VLSI, very large scale electronic circuits. So right now these days, whatever in a layman term you call chip, okay, that it in layman language you would call. So that is what we develop, and this is the flow of an industry. How an IC, an integrated circuit, or a chip or SoC, we call it system on chip, how it is developed. So let's get an example. Okay, you want to make a phone where you want to have certain specification. It should have a front camera, back camera. It should have a fingerprint sensor. It should be there might be camera specification. It should have Bluetooth. It should have modem. It should have all different kind of specification, whatever you want. So once the demand is in the market, so the first it will go to the company will take the project, and the architect or whatever who is designing, the design specification will be decided. Okay, which modules I have to use. I have to use camera module, Bluetooth module, and what kind of technology I want to use, and depending on the customer requirement. Then an overall picture is drawn. Okay, these are the modules I want, and then the implementation takes place. So first of all, the chip architect will decide. Okay, what is the main framework or structure in our which has to be developed. Then a description and specification specs, what is the function of each particular module will be, that is decided. Then RTL description, HTL, which is called. So when there is the front end RTL team that will start coding the everything that is implemented has to be coded. So first, mainly right now these is everything. This is called front end team. Whatever the first stage is front end, the second stage is back end. So if you heard about a language called Verilog, Okay, so I'll not go into much of the details, but let's say basically Verilog is the language where they will develop a, yeah, design. So let's say design is for your level. Let's say it's an adder, it's a subtractor, it's an ALU. So that way, it is a much more complex logic that is developed in Verilog. Okay. Now, once you are developing those, and this is a very, I mean, layman terms. When I give an example, right now the chip that we have in one square inch of an area, they will contain billions and billions of transistors now. So the complexity and the logics and the modules are very compact. So it might be easy to incorporate. Okay, this we have to code, but in later stages it becomes very difficult. So as soon as you have started implementing those functionalities, let's say you want to make a module that will generate clock. Okay, so you start implementing it. Now parallelly there is a team called functional verification team, which is my team. So the design will give me specs. This module has to perform these functions. So parallelly, at the same time of the development of all the modules, a parallel verification team will start using its verification test bench. It will start implementing functional scenarios to check whether whatever the design is implementing is it correct or not. Let's say you want to generate a module which is actually giving you a clock, let's say 100 megahertz or 1 gigahertz clock. So you will functionally verify, okay, this module is creating that or not. So likewise, many of the modules are created in SOC, and parallelly, this is a parallel cycle that takes place. They will develop, we will verify, they will develop, verify. So 70% of the time of a chip cycle, this operation is done. Okay, this is at the hardware HDL, this high level description language, which is Verilog. Once the chip is functionally bug free, means you don't have any bug, means there is no discrepancy, the modules are working fine. The same hardware description language is now converted into a gate level synthesis. So I'll stop here. And anyone who is not able to follow me, it's very difficult. But any basic question if you have, you can just ask me. Hello. It's really
You
great.
can also put your questions in the chat box.
So
Hello. Please interact with Amit sir.
no, I think it's whatever. If you have doubts, then only if you want. Otherwise, okay. Now after that, so let me tell you this way. Have you studied gates in your syllabus? And gate or gate nor gate and MOSes and all? Do you people have an idea about that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, and how many are you aware of a language called Verilog?
Yes, sir. Aware of.
Anybody who has studied that green book called Morris Manus should have an idea, the idea of a Verilog code. How does a Verilog code look like? Okay.
Yes,
So
sir.
that, so if you see that Verilog course will have some A and B, and output of C is A and B. So that is a hardware description language. Now you will synthesize it, because anyways once you have an hardware, the hardware will not contain A and B. It will have a physical connection. So that A and B, that gate is converted into actual gate in the synthesis. So that's a tool that develops it. So it's just a overall, you're not able to understand. Right? Then that once it has been converted into gate level, again the verification cycle takes place whether the conversion has taken properly or not. Once this all are bug free, then comes the actual design. So there now comes a part of the backend team. Now backend team will have an layout. Let's say you want to uh, let's say there's a chart paper, and you have different boxes. Now this is called physical design. Now depending upon the feasibility, now chart paper is very big, but the area of a chip is, let's say, 1 square inch, and in that you have two billions and billions of transistors you have to place. So that is a job of physical design team. They actually place gates, okay, in those area, and they will design, okay, and they will make the connection. This is the physical layout, floor planning, DRC, all those are implemented. Those are physical design team, where the gates will be placed, where the module will be placed, the wire connections, timing, and all that. So these all are very, in a layman term, these are the uh, job of a backend team. Now backend team also has a parallel verification at the physical level, where they are different high-tech tools that actually generates all these reports, and you will be able to say whether the chip is working fine or not. Once your floor plan is decided, okay, this module has been placed here, this module has it. It's just like you want to make a building complex, okay? So you have building A, building B, then you have swimming pool and all that. But there is an architect who decide, okay, this has to be the floor plan, and then once the architect plan is decided, the building is implemented. Same way, once everything is decided, okay, then that database goes to the foundry. Now in India, we don't have any foundry. Foundry is a place where in actual silicon, your design is implemented through the various techniques called photolithography and all that. In third year, you will have a chapter called ICT technology where you will study how these designs are implemented in a silicon. So once that is those are placed, the silicon comes out in forms of wafers. Then each silicon will have, let's say, in a production time, millions and millions of a particular design is implemented. Then it goes to come back to the company. We will test it at the boards through different. If you have heard a term called FPGA and everything, that once you have got the chip, whether the chip is working fine or not, all the functionalities are working fine or not, there are numerous iteration, very high level of testing. Once that is done, then it is implemented in the actual product that you have your phones and all those. So this is a basic idea of an electronics VLSI industry that takes place. The companies like Qualcomm, Samsung, Intel, whatever they develop. Okay. So any doubts in this? Any questions that you could have?
So there is a one question in the message: why there isn't any foundry for manufacturing of these
Got question.
chips?
Yeah. First of all, the foundry is very expensive. Okay, to have a hub here. So basically, even there is a very limited number of foundries. Mainly, we have in Taiwan we have TSMC, Korea we have Samsung, and in US we have Intel and some other foundries. This is very limited. It takes a high and state of art technology. It takes a lot of money, and there was a talks about I think 10 years back in India to set up all those things, but the government and the bureaucracy, so they were not able to agree to a terms where this has to be implemented. So I think there are talks going on where we can implement a foundry here, but yeah, this is more of a the willingness of a government and an industry to set up a platform here. Anyone else? So this is a rough idea of the job that is done in VLSI industry. What we do, what we people do. Okay. Shall we move to the next slide? Okay. So main career scope in this industry is RTL design, design verification, DFT design for testing, physical design, and analog circuit design. So briefly, I'll explain you what is RTL design. So I told you now the very first step when the architecture is done, there is one front-end team which will start coding the functionality of a particular thing like Verilog and Verilog. So that is the register transfer logic design team. That is the front-end RTL team that will start designing all those in Verilog. Okay, so this is their job to code all this in a high description level. All this functionality they will code. Okay, this is their job. Whatever you have studied in Verilog, if you, let's say you want to develop a clock and all those things, that is done in Verilog. Design verification team. So I told you parallelly, there's a design verification team which will come work closely with the RTL design team to make sure that their chip is bug free. Mind you, the difference between a software and a hardware industry is about this thing only. Because once a chip has a bug and it is developed at the millions of level, the chip is gone and you're done with. Your career is finished. Your entire industry is finished. Your entire company is finished. Because in software you can just release a patch and fix things. In hardware, once there's a connection broken, it's gone. This is why we have very less number of people in this industry, very less number of and huge money as compared to software. Now the third is a design and fault testing team. This is a team which if you have so I told you there is a synthesis where the gates are created. So this team will actually check there is no connection breakage. Let's say you have an electrical wire, okay, and there is a connection breakage. Then if you supply current, you don't see the current flowing. So this is the an overall. This I won't be able to explain because it doesn't have any open source this one interaction. But yeah, I can tell you how to read about it. Then physical design team is the actual team which will lay the floor plan, gates, placement, routing, and all those things. how metals. So once you have studied the IC technology course in your third year, you'll be able to relate it what a physical design team does. How will they place gates in silicon, metal layer, so you have the connections so that circuits can flow the electricity and all that. Analog circuit design, I think, how many of you know uh, this VK sir? You know, I think anybody knows? He was our HOD, I think, couple of years back or something. You know VK sir? Vinod Kumar Singh. He retired right now. I think last even 2019 or 2018 he retired. Anyone know him?
No, sir.
Okay. So he was our HOD in EC. He's a very brilliant guy. And so he was a master in analog circuit designing. This particular thing has very few number of people. It's very tough. That's why jobs are very less, but it's a very highly demanding job. Analog circuit design, where if you have heard about HSpice and PSpice simulators, op amps,
PAMs, they must have heard in first year, I think.
guys, basic
Yes, sir.
electronics.
Open we have.
So,
Ramps we have heard of.
how so these are so those are not so early, everything is digital, so any IP can have any chip can have an digital module and they can have an analog module. So digital module, whatever I told, will be coded in Verilog, and these are op amps cannot be coded digitally. Okay, so these are analog design circuit team. They will develop these analog designs in a layout and then they will give to the physical design team. Okay, so these are the main areas of career scope which you have. So once you take these names, just type in the Google and you will see a lot more information in the, I think there are a lot more of NPTEL courses available on this particular things, and a lot more of text is available open sourcely on the web platform for all these things. Okay. Now, can we quickly go to the next slide? I think I'm taking a lot of time. So, are you do guys any commitment, or shall we cut short it? I don't know. Is there any commitment that you want to cut short all these sessions?
You guys can inform it on the chat box as well.
Okay.
There is no time.
So the first thing, so I'll quickly go to the two main areas of job where you can these job roles and responsibilities, because the two I'm focusing right now is because these two are the areas where you have open text available, open videos available, and open source platform available to implement things. Others, there others I think analog has, but others they don't have any open source platform because they are tool specific and tools are very costly. The corporate companies they are actually able to get those licenses, but as student in college level, I don't think you guys can afford it. So the first one is RTL design. Okay, where I told you where you have to develop a functional block. So the skills required is the Verilog knowledge. Now Verilog knowledge has to be a very sound Verilog knowledge. In terms of, let's say, anybody gives you a circuit diagram, you are able to code that in your Verilog. Okay, strong digital design circuit knowledge. Okay, so there is a book called Morris Mano. Have you heard of it? This is prescribed in your syllabus, I guess. I think from second year onwards, you people might be studying it.
Yes, sir. We have heard about it.
That's one of the best book for digital circuit designs. Go through it. It's tough. So there's a digital circuit design course also from different NPTEL sources. You can just correlate with them. Practice those coding that are available in their Morris Mano, and you'll have a very strong knowledge of circuit designing and digital circuit designing, how to implement, because this is one of the promising areas to get job. FSM knowledge. FSM is a finite state machine. So I don't think so. The higher third year, final year can, and even second year, you should know the what is FSM. So this is like a flow chart. Once you have like a flow chart you have in computer science, this is like FSM, finite state machine for a digital design. So these are the things that you should have a very strong command on. And this doesn't require an industrial intervention. From college, right from the first year, second year, it's just books, lectures, and open source platform to practice all these. Nothing else. The sources to study is Verilog. There's a book called Verilog Designing. I know the author's name is Samir Panitkar. Okay, his book in Verilog is very good. There are numerous NPTEL courses available on Verilog, and Morris Mano for digital circuit designing. Okay, that you should have. And to practice all these things, there is a site called edaplayground.com. This is an open source site where you can just code your design and you can run the simulation and you can see the results. That will give you much more confidence. Okay, what you're doing is fine or not. Okay, Let's go to the next slide, Brittany. Any doubts in this thing, this RTL design? Okay, fine. So this is the second is design verification. This is my area of here. I told you as I told you, the RTL team will design all those things, and then the verification team, it's their job to verify that the design is working fine or not. So there's a language that we use is called a system verilog. System verilog works on a methodology called UVM, Universal Verification Methodology. Then you have a very strong, should have very strong coding skills, and you should have a good knowledge of a digital circuit design. So RTL, to become a good verification engineer, you should also be a good RTL engineer, because you have to understand the design to verify it. Otherwise, you won't be able to do it. Okay. Now, text and videos, you have this UVM cookbook where you will get the explanation of the UVM. Springer LRM language, that's called language reference manual for system verilog. And there is again numerous number of videos on YouTube and different I think this one education sites. I think Coursera or Udemy, I don't know. A lot of sites which have all these courses. We can take up the courses, very cheap courses, and you can just go through it. You will have a very strong, you have at least a background, and then you can start studying books and coding. And also one thing, you should have a good knowledge of a scripting language, both for RTL, any RTL, DFT, PD, any uh, field you want to enter VLSI, you should have a good scripting knowledge of any one particular language. I would prefer Python. Do it. Right from first year, right from first day, right from second year, any which way, right from today. Study Python if you want to get a job in industry. Even if you don't get a job in VLSI, you'll get a job in software, but have a good working knowledge of Python. That's very, very necessary. Don't stuck onto all this C and all those. That's not working at all. You should have a working knowledge of Python. Okay. And again, for this also, you have an open source site called edaplayground.com. Okay. Can we move to the next slide? Is there anything? Hello.
Abhilash, the next slide.
Okay, so briefly, I'll tell you the companies, then I'll come to how to enter all those. The main question here. So, the companies, we have two different kind of product companies in this particular scenario. One is the product companies. Product companies are actually the companies who will develop all these chips and these ICs that I'm talking about. Some Intel, Qualcomm, Samsung, Nvidia, ARM, AMD, and XP Semiconductors, and ST Microelectronics. You may have heard of others, TI, Xilinx, and all those things. That is just a part of it. And their service industry. So much like TCS and Wipro and all that, in Bangalore, there's a culture of a service VLSI industry. And so Altron, Eximus, Mirafra, CRM, etc. Now, how did I get into VLSI industry? Because there's no company coming to placement. So how did I get into? There's a company called Eximus Designs. This is a service VLSI company. In our final year, it came for a campus placement. Why it came for a campus placement? Because we're at a very senior position. I think some 20 years back, one of our alumni was at a director level position in this company. So they wanted some freshers to be hired. So they came to North India. They are basically in Bangalore, but they came to North India. They went to MNIT Allahabad, HPTI, and our college. And they took a place to, they did a campus drive, and we were selected. And then we went to Bangalore. Then for the first time, I realized that they are specifically service industries for VLSI only. They are not software based, nothing. They are only VLSI. So the toughest part in this industry is to get an entry. Once you enter, you'll shoot up like anything. But the toughest part is to get an entry. So don't expect Qualcomm, Samsung, Nvidia to come to IIT Lucknow campus at least in a couple of years or next 4 years. But these companies, service companies, you can target them. They might not come into placements, but you can approach them with the skills that I told you. You have first to break the first chain. You have to have a skill to enter industry. You cannot enter industry after final year handing a resume and say, okay, this is what I have. No, it doesn't work that. Because service companies, how they work is that they will send you on a client. Okay, then you will work for a client, and the client will bill to them. Now, if once they place in their company, they don't expect you to train them, and they don't expect the client to train you. So you should have a working knowledge of whatever is given to you. Now you will say that without industry, without going to industry, how can I have working knowledge? And if I don't have working knowledge, how can I enter into industry? This is where the skills come into play. Develop projects, have a very, very strong skill, apply it, and then you'll at least any one of the companies will take you if they have sent you like for 2 years. You have developed in different areas of this very long this one VLSI design. Other thing is MTech. So most of the companies that I'm talking about, Qualcomm, Samsung, and all, they prefer master students, including they even for bachelors they hardly take bachelors for VLSI. Mostly they'll place bachelors in software. Most of the VLSI guys will be from master's degree. So if you want to enter VLSI industry, you can go for masters from IITs and decent NITs as well, and they will also give you good placement. Even if decent NITs don't give you placement in product, they will definitely get placed in the this service industry. So MTech in VLSI or microelectronics can actually help you go down this path. Okay, I have a question. What is the possibility of embedded system in agriculture sector? Okay, I think that it will. So other thing is internship. Please again, same thing. I also tried for Qualcomm and Intel. They have so understand this one. How does it work? Let's say these companies they all hire fresher in one pool because they have resources to train. So they'll start their training from January. 1 month they'll train the people and they'll give it the project. Now, if they have placed, let's say there are 100 fresher jobs in Qualcomm. So they have identified some 20, 30 colleges from IITs, BETS and all that. They know these are reputed colleges and we all agree they are. So for choosing 100 guys from that 5 companies, they'll take their lot is finished. So even if you apply off campus, that doesn't help. And if you apply in August, September, October, okay, their pool is finished. They don't have any training slot. They will not take you unless you are experienced enough. So initially, don't dream of directly going to a Qualcomm or Samsung, Nvidia, Intel from directly from IT as a bachelor. No, it's very very difficult unless you have developed your own technology. So if you want job from bachelor's level, try the service industry with the skills. And if you want directly in product companies, work for MTech and do it. Now there are if you have money after BTech and you can spare 1 year, there are different institute in Bangalore, maybe in Silicon and all that, who will provide you with these courses, 6 months of courses, and then they will provide you with 6 months of internship in any of the company, so that you can enter the industry. This is also one of the good areas, the good ways to enter the industry if you can expense after a BTech 1 year or 6 months in training, getting trained. So these are the different ways where you can have an entry to this industry. Money wise, if you are entering a service industry, maybe in a couple of years you will have some nominal pay, but it will shoot up. Trust me. And if you directly enter into Qualcomm and Samsung, it's always 7 figures. The basic is 7 figures. So these companies have a standard of 7 figures, and even service industries also will pay you after a couple of years. They will start paying you 7 figures. So that directly you have to, if you're going to a service one for a couple of years, just have patience. Then you'll get money. Money is not an issue here. VLSI industry will give you an ample amount of money. Okay. So I think this is what I have to tell you. Now you can ask a question. Shivam, I think
Yes,
we
sir.
have to right. Then
Yeah.
we have questions.
Shivam sir would present and then the question answer round.
Yeah. So I'll present. Wait for a second. It's showing Abhilasha Goyal is presenting. Yeah. Is everybody able to see my slides? Hello?
Yes, sir.
All my slides are visible now? From the starting.
Yes, sir.
So, my name is Shivam, as you all know. I am from robotics background, and currently I am working in Grey Orange Robotics. It's a startup that began in 2012 by Samay Kohli. He is a BITS Pilani graduate, and we are more into autonomous system in supply chain and warehouse management. Has anybody heard about warehouse management?
Yes, sir.
So in warehouse, we like take articles from one place to another using the robots. That's the overall view of it. So mainly I'm more associated with New Space Research and Technologies that has been developing drones in behalf of Grey Orange Robotics. And I have developed more drones rather than in working on supply chain system. Okay. So currently I'm working in HAL for a project for the drones, and my work is to design a specialized payload for the drones that have been developed in HAL. I can't go much into detail because it's some privacy issue, and I can't tell you everything about what the government is doing. Not very much, but I've signed for it. So mainly I'm developing a specialized payload that will deploy something at some place. So one thing more, I have been working on the algorithm that aid the flight controllers. Flight controllers are the basic electronic system that is used in order to control the flight of a drone. Have anybody heard of any flight controller? Can anybody tell me a name of a flight controller? Anyone?
Exog, sir.
Okay, nice. Any more names? PixCube, KK board, you must have heard of it. The cheap one, KK board.
Yes, sir.
Version 1.4. I went flying one drone when I was in final year, and I crashed it in the office. Got scolded for it. Nevertheless, let's proceed. And one thing more HAL has been doing currently, they are developing their own flight controllers. All these flight controllers are open source, if you know. So our main task is to develop a more robust flight controller. How robust it can be? The using of multiple sensors, like there is an accelerometer on board which is used to sense what's the direction the drone is pointing and how the orientation of the drone is, and many other things like GPS, gyroscope, and there are several things that need to be taken care of. So after this India-China conflict, HAL has asked our company to develop a flight controller, custom flight controller. So I've been working on it lately, and there's the last point here in this slide is the PCB parameters that need to be taken care of while design of a flight controller or any circuit in general. So, has anybody gone through PCB designing? Has anybody designed any PCB yet? Any of you?
Yes, sir.
What's the platform you use?
Eagle CAD.
Eagle CAD is a very good. There are many. LTM is also there, and there is one more. I think I've been using Eagle lately from my college days. So Eagle has a lot of libraries, so it's a good platform. And there is one easy EDA for the beginners who want to design PCB. Eagle is not a very easy software in the beginning, but you can start with easy EDA, and it also has the capability to design 2-layer, 4-layer, or 6-layer PCBs. 6-layer PCB is far beyond reach for the college student, but I'm telling you, you can learn about it on internet. So my field is like very wide sort of field. I've been associated with drones only, but my field has been like I have to design 3D models as well. I have to design custom PCBs as well. I have to design the overall drone as well, and I have to design even a rover. But that was associated with some other company project. So the thing is, every day there is a new startup, and according to the startup in India, there are 3 tech startups every day. But I don't consider startups a very viable thing unless and until they try to solve a real time problem. You can understand, some people come up with idea that is not feasible, you know. So the main thing is that when you are associated with a startup, one thing I would like to mention that everybody who is interested in learning things and working on a large variety of things, they need to work on they need to work in a startup. In the initially you won't get a much salary or pay slip, you don't have to worry about it because the skill set is important. Skill is the key to success. You don't expect ki there are a lot of companies like Bosch, and they also, if anybody has gone through the job profile they offer, they want from a student is like they need a 4-year minimum experience. Has anybody searched any job profile from Bosch or Grey Orange or any of the companies?
Yes, sir.
So what did you see there?
Sir, they hire mostly 4 year, 5 year, or above experienced people.
There, the skill needs to be there because even I think we can't hire anybody with doesn't have a skill or back experience on any of this field because this is not a sort, as Amit sir has already mentioned, in circuits there is a smoke test. We call it smoke test. Whenever you power on a circuit, there will be smoke if the design is not correct or if there is any issue. Unlike software, where you can debug the code. So we have a lot of things have to be taken care of at the PCB level as well, as sir has mentioned, for the design. And the other thing is that there are new development environments like many IDEs, frameworks, but as sir has told us, Python is the most important language that you need to learn right now and code, like start coding every day. I think sir has told the right thing. And even I have been working on Python only because the algorithms I develop are on Raspberry Pi. And Raspberry Pi, as you have worked upon, supports Python 3.6. Has anybody working on Raspberry Pi lately?
Yes, sir. I've been working on Raspberry Pi.
Yeah, so you might be familiar with all the things I've told you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and if you work on version 3.6, it's a more stable version. It supports many Keras and TensorFlow 2.0 and all.
OpenCV and Star. Yes, sir.
Yeah, because never ever try to work on the latest version because all the packages have been, some of the packages of all the available have been made like error free according to the latest, not according to the latest version. So try to work on one version later. Like currently there is version 3.7 on Raspberry Pi, but downgrade it to 3.6 and start working on it. For the Raspberry Pi guys, I am telling, and everybody else, 3.6 is a proper version to work upon. One thing more, nowadays there are several hardware coming up. Like we work on Atmega series on Arduino, we work on STM32. Has anybody worked on STM32? Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
So nobody responded, but okay. STM32 are the chip of future, I should say. Atmel chip, why? I'll tell you one reason. Because they support a large number of GPIO pins and they have better communication protocols and they support new types of UART and serial and CAN bus. There is one more protocol called CAN bus. It is used in autonomous cars. So CAN bus is a very fast protocol and you should try, guys, just Google it out and try to learn more about it. It's the communication protocol of the future because there is one thing called sensor fusion. Has anybody heard of it? Sensor fusion. Hello? Nobody? There are, whenever a robotic system works, we need to have data from all sorts of GPS, accelerometer, gyroscope, vision data, and every sort of data that needs to be processed simultaneously. For that, in the last slide I have mentioned extended Kalman filter. That Kalman filter is used to obtain data from the sensors and reject the errors. Are you getting my point? Say yes or no, you are all are sleeping or what?
Yes,
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 sir.
sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Actually, I was not able to reply previously. I know about the Kalman filter.
Yeah.
And
we have been our company has been developing the extended Kalman filter, and our GitHub repository is also online now, and it's open, so you can go and check out how it's implemented. And these are like tools for the like advanced robotics. Even when I was in college, I didn't know about any of these things. So it's a very good opportunity to learn about these things beforehand. Because during my interview in Grey Orange, they asked me like several things that I didn't even heard of it. Like there is one thing called gimbal. I haven't heard of it, gimbal, when I was in final year. If anybody know about gimbal, it's for camera stabilization in drones.
Yes, sir.
So I haven't heard of it, and there were several things I didn't knew, but I tried to explain what I knew properly. So I was a bit lucky as well. And whatever our technical mentor was asking, I was like try to like go around the question and tell what I knew. So so choosing your hardware properly is the next basic thing. Whenever you start working like on like something can be implemented on Arduino, you shouldn't be using Raspberry Pi for that. Okay, like these few of the algorithms can be implemented on Arduino only. So once we also put like I will give you an example. For autonomous navigation, we can implement without using image processing. We can use accelerometric data, and there is one thing called, right everybody, please note it down somewhere, dead reckoning. You got it? Dead reckoning. Do study about it afterwards. We can use this thing in Arduino as well. We don't need to like use heavy processing like using OpenCV and Python and TensorFlow, everything on Raspberry Pi just to get some navigation thing. Unless and until you want very accurate things. Also, for outdoor navigation, we need to have like GPS data for it. You can also, when you are implementing any board in the outside scenario, you can use GPS data in any of the boards you want. So you have to choose your board wisely. And moving on to the next slide. So in the electronics field, we have to deal with several items like prototype designing, board selection, programming selection, how to design a proper PCB, how to make proof of concepts, and many things are there. So I'll talk about the prototype designing. Whatever product you see in the market, any of it is developed by a prototype itself. The prototype don't need to be look very good. It has a lot of haywire, wirings and all. And when you implement it on a industrial scale, a lot of things you need to learn that I didn't know beforehand. I'll tell you, when I was last year, there was some project regarding stabilization of video using some algorithm, and we have to deliver a product to a company. So I and my friends were working on it. So during that, I have made something hardware, and I presented to my boss. Sir, this is done. This is like we can give it to you, and we have made a 3D box around it, and we like properly put every wire and soldered in that, and we gave it to him. And he scolded me like anything. Okay, what is this? This is not done, and every kind of thing. Then I realized the things you deliver has to be good and looks good. Both needs to be done properly. So whenever you try to develop any robotics, or any robot or any circuit or any electronic stuff, you try to make it tidy and neat. And moving on to the second point, the board selection, I have already discussed. Like whatever is needed, don't buy above it, unless and until you are doing some R&D more on it. Like STM32 boards, you should start learning about STM32 boards as well, because they have more industrial capability than Atmega 328 that are used in Arduino series. Okay, it is also open source, and you can just Google it and get buy some simple boards. The board is not also very expensive, it's like 200-300 rupees board. Not very advanced one. The basic board is only 200-300 rupees. You can just buy and start learning about it. And because Arduino is more of a programming thing rather than hardware thing. In this board, you will be able to harness the real power of a microcontroller. So, does anybody know on what frequency does Arduino work? What's the maximum frequency it can go up to on Arduino, the very basic
16 megahertz.
What?
16.
16, yeah, okay, correct. So the thing is, it can go much beyond that. And when you are implementing a multi-sensor board, you need to have more frequency to get a more proper bandwidth, so that you can able to store, process data more quickly and give the commands. Are you getting my point? More
Yes, sir.
frequency, more power, more processing capability, more RAM, more number of GPIO. Okay, so in the single board, and one thing most important is we need to have a controller that is power efficient equally as well. Okay. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you must be following. So we need to have, when you are implementing anything, we need to power efficiency, because the limiting factor in the drone industry is the power itself. How power efficient a system can be, the more better it is. Like in drones, we need to have like proper flight time. A drone that's flight time is less than 30 minutes or 20 minutes, it's like worthless. Because in any of the purposes like survey, surveillance, anything, you need to have a like proper flight time. And if it is not there, the system is not feasible and not industrially qualified to be called a proper system. So now moving on to the next thing. Has anybody heard about MicroPython?
Yes, sir.
MicroPython for it's not Python, it's microprocessor Python. Its full form is that. So nowadays you can learn, and there are many libraries available as well. So it's a form of Python. It's like you see in Arduino, we can use MicroPython nowadays as well. There are many libraries available, and whatever libraries that have been developed in Python, few of them are now available in MicroPython, and you can develop a higher standard of code for your Arduino or any other microcontroller that you are processing. And I've talked about this proof of concept manufacturing. I've told you that you need to have like good looking circuit as well when you are designing. So it needs to be like, it looks also proper. It has to be proper. It should look also like it's done by someone who knows stuff. In case of PCB, there are many parameters that has to be taken care of. Like there should not be a 90-degree bend. Any of the PCB designers know about it? Do you know? There shouldn't be a 90-degree bend. There shouldn't be the power lines have to be separated. There should be like gaps in the 220 volt AC if you are supplying. So these are the things that you need to be taken care of while you are designing any PCB. Also, one thing more, when you're designing an RF PCB, several hundreds of parameters that you need to be taken care of. Even the you know that whenever electricity passes through a conductor, it develops electromagnetic field. Everybody knows it. So we need to be taken care of that as well. So we made looping in the circuit so that to compensate for that electromagnetic pulse, because it interferes with the RF communication. You have seen that ESP8266 board.
Yes, sir.
IoT guys, where are you?
Yes, sir. We have seen
Yes,
that.
sir. Yeah.
So if you observe minutely, it is shielded by a metal frame, and the antenna, there is one resistor that is installed after it. You can, after the session, you can go through and just see none of the lines are going parallel, because none of the lines in the circuit are going like parallel. They are like the antenna is designed in a wavered pattern, like W. So it doesn't interfere with the communication frequency of the system module. And one more thing I would like to discuss is that whatever I have said in the beginning, you need to set up a standard for the robotics lab. You should be developing some new stuff you should bring out. And I'm happy that many of the guys have been doing good stuff all along. But like there should be a pattern like this has to be completed in the first year. This has to be completed in second year. How many competitions are there? These teams are going. These teams are not going. These teams are qualifying. We are sending only the best team. Like overall things should be like maintained for the clubs. So this is the hexacopter when I joined Grey Orange. Can you see everybody?
Yes, sir.
This was in 2018. This is a S1000 based copter, and it was the algorithm for the swarming that I was talking about was developed. You can see one drone here and one drone on the back side. This was actually assembled and not properly manufactured by us, but we implemented our swarming algorithms on it, and we have shown a pattern to the army chief while I was in 2018. And these drones are being developed on the TBS frame, and these are equipped with the RTK GPS. RTK means real-time kinematics. This GPS can provide you accuracy up to centimeter level. We need to set up a base station 6 hours before the flight time so that it can reduce the error in the GPS while during the flight. So this was Defense Expo 2020, and we have shown this to Manniya Yogi Adityanath. He haven't said anything, just walk away. That's another issue. But the thing is, we have been working on the cutting edge new technology, and you guys need to be aware about all the things that will be happening. That's why I said in the beginning, do you know what the seniors have done in the past? So you should build up over that, not begin from the scratch. You should build up over like whatever I had implemented in my college days. This the batch of 2020 has done far beyond that. So I'm very happy about how the robotics club is going, and you all should carry out the same, I hope. And this is demo at HAL Bangalore, and this drone was specifically designed and developed by two of our guys, and I being the key feature in the developing this. It can the payload capacity of this drone is up to 50 kgs, and it can go up to 40 km/h speed. It was the best performing drone during the demo, and this drone has been took 6 months to develop because we have to do a lot of checks. And let me tell you one thing very straight. Whenever we develop a drone, we have a particular set of policy, paperwork, and we note down each and every flight we take and take the data of everything. We have like everything document. I can tell on 29th of March 2019 where I went to fly, how much battery level was there, and what was the speed of the drone at that time, how much altitude it had gone. These things need to be like documented so that we can have a data to analyze in the future. Got it? So that's why I was saying that you should also learn to documentize whatever you are doing, so that in the future, like it happens to me as well. I was also like, hey, chalta hai. So then there are certain things happen, and I forgot what I had implemented in the past. So I have to rework on that. So this is my experience and I'm sharing with you. You should also like make a habit of documenting whatever you are implementing during the any robotics competition or learning phase or anything like that. And that's all from my side. I know there might be many questions. Can you start asking questions?
If you guys have any specific questions, please do ask or type them in the comment box. or else we also have some questions lined up.
Good afternoon, sir.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Sir, I have a question. I am Kaustubh again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, sir, Amit sir also elaborated on the fact that most of us have a mindset that go to a seven-figure company directly from IIT.
Yeah.
So, is it safe to just join a startup and work for a couple of years and then switch to a higher paying company? Is
Yeah,
that
it's
something?
completely feasible. It's completely feasible. One thing more I would like to say, even if you get a proper job in a very high paying company, you won't be able to learn much. But in a startup, you have like multiple things to learn. I have presented my drone even to the chief of army staff, uh, Manini Mukhyamantri ji of Uttar Pradesh, and many big dignitaries. I have like several of the jobs to do. Like I have to make 3D models as well. So this skill set has to be a large. When I will write my CV and I will present it to anybody, it will be completely different if I have worked in any of the like big company, because they have a specific job, because there are a lot of people. In a startup, there are not the workforce is not very great, so you have to have like multiple things to learn, and the bond you make with the people when you are working over the clock, because it's not like 9 to 5 job. It's really sleeping after that and just going to some party in house class. It's not like that. So we have to like working round the clock. Once I'll tell you, there was a project in Pokhran last year in month of April. We work for continuous 48 hours, continuous without sleeping. We get a 1 hour sleep during that duration, and I was literally sleeping on that sand in Pokhran in April. I was literally sleeping there, and even the flight controller guys, they were like half dead at by that time. So you will get very wide sort of things while working in a startup. I was very fortunate to get into this company, and I've literally learned a lot. And whatever future might be, but I won't regret going into directly seven. The thing is, why I do robotics? I like robotics. I don't do it to show it to anybody or anyone else. I do it for myself, and when I leave the office after 6, I'm happy. Even if you get like 10 lakh rupees per month and you are not happy, it doesn't worth it. And like Amit sir said, going after money is not important in initial years. We just hear that इनका इतना लाख का package लग गया, उनका इतना लाख का package लग गया, and are they happy also? You ask them this. I'm happy with my job, and I'll continue with this only. And whenever I will go, I'll switch to some robotics company only, because I only like it.
All right, sir. So there has been a question that has come up. What are the possibilities of embedded system in agriculture sector, or are there any good companies in this domain?
I have lately heard about few drone manufacturing companies who have been developing some agricultural drones. But I tell you one thing, it's not very feasible because of the money constraint. Because suppose you have to cover one area, you have to spray some pesticides over some region. Suppose you have a drone that's built for like 6 to 7 lakhs, and it can can take a payload of 10 kg, I say, and it can travel up to 20 minutes. So the cost of operation will be more than the pesticide, or more than the guys who are क्या कहते हैं, those who are being deployed in the fields by the local farmers. They'll take 300 rupees and cover a particular set of area. You are getting my point. There are companies that are developing, but the feasibility of the money and like you have seen in many foreign countries that they are like deploying drones to monitor or to spray pesticide, to spray fertilizer and everything, because the workforce is expensive there. You get my point? We are just sometimes our startups. That's what I was saying. Is sometimes our startups just don't go into the real scenario, what's happening, and they just make. I've seen like several drone companies when approached me last year as well. Please develop sir for us and all. Then that was different thing. but the feasibility of drones is not possible unless and otherwise you are developing some manual walking robot, or that farmer implement some like embedded system in that like tractors, and they put some automation on that. That's a different scenario. But as far as I am concerned, the feasibility in the real market is the main issue while implementing. You are turning on pump is, I'll not consider that a very big thing in that, because or surveillance using a camera. These are like beyond not very. Everybody is doing that. So if you want to implement something real, but just check the feasibility of the system and then implement, because you don't have to show it to get some award, but you have to survive in the market. You getting my point? Surviving the market is more important rather than making innovation that is of not of use.
Also, sir, this question has come up that are MTech students preferred over BTech students in this particular field? And how can people prepare for interviews as a physical design engineer?
Okay. Yeah.
Amit,
So
this.
yeah. So basically, yeah, definitely this is the MTechs will be preferred over the BTech students because they have an extra 2 years of specific knowledge in the VLSI industry. VLSI exposure in terms of when you do MTechs in VLSI design for microelectronics, then you'll have a specific exposure. So definitely they will be preferred over the bachelor's one. Secondly, what's the other question that for physical design were you asking?
How can one prepare for the interview?
See, physical design basically. So at college level, you won't. A lot of things are dependent upon the tools and flow, which is very advanced level thing. So at college level, you won't have much exposure to that. You can go through first of all the very basics of the circuit designing, which you have in your courses. So don't just stick to the syllabus level. There are different, I think, books on the SAS IC technology where you have to study. Then there are different courses available on the NPTEL where you can go and have a knowledge of this. And then as an industry experience point of view, you need to, I told you, there are certain institute which will give you on-hands experience of those tools like Maven and all, which will help you in getting into industry from a bachelor's point of view. MTech point of view, you can directly enter into physical design. They, in terms of when you enter industry, you just tell them their preferences and they find you feasible enough, they can give you that.
All right, sir. So this question has also come up a lot of times, that how to make your resume stand out if you want to get into this particular field.
Yeah, that's a very simple answer to that. Just go develop your skill set, whatever. So resume doesn't reflect. So I tell you, for resume is not like nobody will read all the things. If you have a very specific skill set that I've been telling, like let's say you're a verification engineer, you say you know system Verilog, you know Verilog, you know UVM, you have a strong background of digital circuit designing and all that. You have good coding skill, and then you'll show that these are the projects that I have done on my own without any industry help. This is the key point. So first develop the skill, then you'll automatically have the points to fill up a resume. So first you have to get the skills to fill up a resume. You cannot just fill up a resume without having skill.
One thing I would like to add in this: make a resume of only one page only. Nobody has time to read like 4 or 5 pages. One page, it's precise. Don't give information about your parents, your family, and all. I've seen many resume. They are written about my father do this, my mother is a housewife. Nobody's interested in that. Just stick
And
to your skill set.
for my own experience, I tell you, resume doesn't matter. At least in this particular, because they are looking for a very specific skill set. You have that skill set, they'll ask you for that. Other than that, it's just beating a bush around. So that doesn't matter. Okay. Whatever skill set required, you just mention that. Okay, you're fine. You're good.
Yeah, sir. So this question has also come up. They have specifically asked the skill set which is required, like list at least 4 skills which are very much required in the field.
For what? See, if you're
For
specific,
VLSI and embedded systems.
yeah, I told you. So for VLSI, specific skill set for specific domain that I told you. So there were 4 or 5 domains that I told you. So RTL, as I told you in the slides given, you need to have a very strong understanding, knowledge of Verilog. You know, should have a strong understanding of a digital circuit design, and not at a very beginner's level that you design an adder or a simple ALU. NFSM level, a complex circuit designing, you should have an idea. Then different type of circuits you should have studied the properties and how the functionality take place, how to debug all those things. These are, let's say, for RTL verification. I told you system Verilog. You should have working knowledge of how this technology methodologies work. You might have implemented one or two projects, as I told you, EDA Playground. That's an open source environment. So all those things you have to have. So for embedded, I think Shivam can tell what are the specific skills that he's talking about.
For embedded system, I think the knowledge of a particular microcontroller is enough, I think. Because if you know one microcontroller, you can like scale up to it. So on one microcontroller, you need to know like everything: the communication protocols, the number of GPIOs, the RAM, the SRAM, the dynamic RAM, and like you know everything. If you say Arduino, I can ask like many questions that people won't be able to answer. So you should know about. If you know Arduino, that means you know each and every register that has been soldered on that. If you know one thing, you should know everything about it, and this will definitely impress the interviewer for sure.
All right, sir. So a question has come up. I have knowledge in Verilog and basic digital design and FSM. What are project on RTL design which you can suggest?
So RTL design is like, let's say, if you're expecting, you can design a complex ALU. Take a clock divider logic, take a clock synthesis logic. Okay, just take it the circuit, design the FSM and start coding for that. Then these are one of the basic designs. Then they can come up with, I think, there are different kind of sensors that you can implement, all those things, DAC, ATC and DACs and all the implementation and you can do. So, and very basic and knowledge of, so you need to be confident enough what you know first of all. So let's say any problem statement you can take from any of the open source platform. Okay, there will be problem statement, you design this. Okay, decoder, encoder, memory, all those things. These are a part of RTL designing. So can you design a memory? How will you design a memory? So flip flops, registers. Do you know how to design flip flop and all those things? So these are things that you can start with and develop a. Let's say you want to develop a system which has an encoder, a decoder, muxes, memories, and all those things. So how can you design it? Draw the architecture picture of it, see the flow, FSM state, then code, and then simulate. So this is the way you can start with it.
All right, so there is another question: how to determine the right position for ourselves while applying for companies in this field?
I would like to answer this question because on the job I have applied, I just go through what the requirement of the company was. Whenever you are applying for any of the job in any of the companies, first you should go through what they truly want, and if your profile matches up to 80%, then only they will be considering you for interview, not before that. So in Grey Orange, I was lucky enough that the embedded design what was matching with most of my profile, and I also learned few of the things that they were requiring for embedded design engineer as a beginner. Okay? So the basic thing is that whatever you are applying, just look for what actually they want. Then only they don't require what you are looking for, but they want according to themselves only. So look up to what they are wanting and try to develop your skills. In general, I would say ki, go through few of the profiles that you are interested in future. Note down what the skills they require. Try to develop it, and then in future, whenever you are applying, that you will be like called for interview and you will be considered. You will be stand amongst others.
So
All right.
one for VLSI, let's say, for example, if I give you, so if you're a 0 to 3 years of engineering experience, there will be very basic requirement. Okay, let's say for verification, you need to have a good knowledge of system Verilog. There are certain protocols. I think you have heard of PCI, AMBA protocol, AHP, APB. At least one of the protocols you should have knowledge of, so that they can ask you about certain protocol specification. Through timing diagrams, you can explain all those protocols. They give you certain codings, you can code, solve the problem. These are certain basic you will be able to know. That, okay, this is the point of entry I have before applying for a certain job.
All right, so I would like to say that anyone who has any questions, please do ask them now or send them in the chat box. I'm proceeding with the last question. All right, so there's a question. I'm currently working on ROS as my skill. Is it relevant? And are there companies that have a requirement of ROS
Yeah.
development engineers?
ROS is a very burning skill nowadays. It's called robotics operating system. It was developed in the past, but the main feature of ROS is that we have like many set of libraries that can be directly implemented on your robot, but it needs to have some. You need to have a computer that has Linux. We need to all install and everything is that. Apart from that, ROS is a very burning topic, and we need to have knowledge about that. Even the swarming drones that we are implementing in our company, that's developed over ROS only. So yes, there is a very requirement for ROS developers, and if you have a deep knowledge of ROS, and you can easily get a job call or a job, you can easily get through it. ROS is, you need to have some like basic skill set, and ROS is a very huge topic. It's a different operating system on its own, and but if you keep on working on it, then you will develop some skill, and it will help you in future.
All right, sir. So proceeding with the last question, although it has been briefly discussed by Amit sir, but this question has come a lot of times to us. How to approach reputed firms such as TI, Mentor Graphics, Qualcomm, etc. for internship and placement off campus?
So as I already told, if you're a BTech from IT Lucknow, you cannot. Let's be very frank with this now. I'm being very honest. Don't live in a cocoon or a shell that you can approach them. No, they will not consider your resume. So again, try for tier two. Don't try for tier one. So the thing is like if you try for tier one only and you get disappointed, you will not try for tier two. Think it is beneath my level. No, it doesn't happen. So since either your college comes up to a company level that your companies come to your college, or you take a route to reach to those companies, and that route is not direct. First, you go to a grade two company, which is a service or a small company, get a working knowledge, and then try applying it there. This is a way. Directly, you cannot. Directly, okay, you can do. You get an MTech degree from a reputed college, and then you can directly apply. But as a BTech fresher degree from IIT Lucknow, these companies, I don't think till the time we are capable enough to compete IITs or a bit, we won't be able to apply that.
All right, sir. So this is the end of Q&A session, I guess. If you have any questions, everybody, so please send them right now. Or else I would like you to sum up the meeting, say, give a few suggestions. What would you like to say to the students? Amit
One
sir and Shivam sir.
Yeah, one thing. So I think that you all have the slides available. Okay, just go through the slides, whatever Shivam I have prepared. Search each and every keyword of it. Okay, don't just read it. So there are points there. Search for it. Read, go through it. Okay, you'll have a basic idea what is going on in between. Okay, then there are certain books, there are certain texts, certain websites that have been mentioned. Go through it, see how it is working, and then uh, just I think can you please can you please how to pronounce your name? It's very difficult. Can you just tell me Mridusha, Ruchi?
Mradushi, yes sir.
Okay, so you can just forward the email ID to the people. Okay, so you have any queries, you can just email me over the weekend. I'll get. Sir, it's not feasible enough to get on the WhatsApp group although this is not like very feasible
Will
option.
do sir. Will do sir.
Yeah, email all the queries that you have, and I'll try to answer most of them as much as possible.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, there is one more question that has come up. I think it's for Shivam, sir. How can we, I think it's for you. How can we approach VLSI startups for internship and job opportunities as a BTech fresher?
So as I told you, so BTech fresher VLSI, unlike whatever Shivam has told for startup companies, VLSI startup companies are not product based because developing a VLSI product is a very expensive thing. So a small startup cannot afford it. Okay, whatever let's say Arduino is talking about. So whatever RAM and all the GPIOs and all the processors is talking about, these are these are the things that are developed by us, and these are developed in foundry. So it's very costly. So startups don't develop it. Startup may design and they or most of the time startups are like will provide services to the big companies. So as I told you, develop the skill set, whatever the programming language and all, and apply. Start applying. You might get an interview for one of the two companies. Come to Bangalore, apply for them, or else you can go to one of the training institutes which provide these funds. 6 months, you just get a train, have a hell lot of knowledge. Then either they'll get you placed as an intern in one of the companies. Service come from that way. You can choose a path towards that. BTech fresher directly without any background of the LSI applying, I think it's not possible.
All right, sir. Shivam, sir, what would you like to address to the students at last?
Uh, in the last, I would like to only say increase your skill set. That's the key to any of the industries, whatever VLSI or robotics or any IT industry, anywhere. You need to increase your skill set, and you need to develop an environment in the robotics lab that the things should be happening. Like in IITs, there are like everybody's coding. The CS guys are always coding. So in robotics, there should be always some electronics development going on. There should be like that. We should compete with each other and in a healthy manner and try to compile all the knowledge and become strong while you are presenting yourself to any of the companies. That's what I would like to say. Increase your skill set, develop more, compete more.
Yeah, that's
That's
what. So the thing is, you can break this cycle of not getting jobs and placement. First, you have to prove yourself. You're worth enough. It might take couple of years to see your college to become visible. Once you have batches coming into them working fine, then only it will come. It will not happen that you don't have a skill set and a company will come. That we have all been facing that same issue. So this, to break this cycle, you have to have this thing first. Develop yourself, apply it, and then let's say how the market plays for you. Other thing is I read somewhere this they have abolished some basic electronics and basic this mechanics courses from the first year syllabus. Okay, maybe, but I think the electronics specific guys, have you had this course or not? Or this is it has been scrapped for you also? C branch basic electronic course, is it there or has it been scrapped for you also?
Sir,
Basic
it is
electronics
removed.
was scrapped for the first year for this batch.
Sir, from actually also there is a one information that from this year on, that the current years, the first year that will be admitted this year, we will have electronics back again. So like the current second year is only the one single batch that has not studied these two subjects.
Also third year.
Yeah, sorry, also third year.
He's the guy who was studying electronics branch should have. Okay, so if you don't have, okay, you can have their basic electronic courses available for MTL and their books available. You can just go through that offline. If you have any problems, you can contact people around your teachers and you may also if you want, okay, regarding this whole thing.
All right, so this brings us to the end of the session. Thank you very much, Amit sir and Shivam sir, for joining us, lending your expertise. And
One
for
thing more.
everyone else,
Yeah, one thing more. We always start this, but the most disappointing thing is follow up. If you guys won't follow up, nobody will take interest in helping around again. So if you really want to have those things, you need to have curiosity and follow ups, and you need to show it to people. Otherwise, people will just come and give you lectures and then go away, and it will go again. The wind will blow away. You need to go tape around, see the keywords, dig around, have questions, and follow up. This is the way. Otherwise, people won't be able to if you don't have anything of yours.
that's right, sir. So, thank you very much yet again. I shall be sharing your email ID as you have said and suggested. And everyone else, I have floated a feedback form. So, kindly fill it and let us know about the session. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.